Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This is the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again with your host Nick Scopes and the Gregolicious. You know how we do, cause you know we keeping it gangster and silly. Unplugged like a full swung titty. About to get giddy, cause you know we down to the nitty and the gritty. And we make shit sound so damn pretty. Yeah, cause this unhinged comedy. And right now you're in the mix. So get ready, cause we about to get it poppin'. And we ain't poppin'. Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the Mangina Dialogues.
Oh, man. Hello and welcome to the Mangina Dialogues. I am your host, Nick Scopes.
And I'm the Gregolicious.
And it looks like our guest today, Melissa Rivers, is really enjoying that song.
Oh, my God. I love your theme song. Now, did you guys write that?
We did not write it. We helped construct it.
That means someone else wrote it and you went, ooh, I liked it.
That's 100% what happened.
The fact that you're, I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming somewhere in middle age.
Me or him?
I'm talking about Greg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look young. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
You
look
you're wearing a Britney t-shirt.
Good.
Okay. We're friends already.
Good.
I need a theme song like that.
Well, I got two guys who can construct it for you. They're puppets.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I need a theme song like that.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's interesting.
It's catchy, right? It's a little ridiculous. The first time Greg played it for me, I was like, oh, no.
I gave him only two words that I needed in it. And one was unhinged and one was unfiltered. And that's what they came back with. And
nice.
We got what we got.
Yeah, I would give them, I'm trying to think what I would give them with I would give them overeducated and I don't know what I would put with, I would probably put with overeducated gives really bad advice.
I'm writing that down.
Overeducated.
He's right.
And look what I did, and look what I've done with my life. I have not used my extremely expensive Ivy League education whatsoever professionally.
Yeah, I saw that when I was looking stuff up about you. I was like, oh my God, you went to Penn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boy, wasn't that money well spent by my parents.
What was your major?
You're gonna laugh at me.
Yeah, probably. Let's hear it.
European history.
Wow.
Hey, I love history.
And look at the net sum of what I've done with that. Let's see. Let's see all the things I've done. There's what I like to think about, which is the red carpet and the fashion, which I'm not sure if I will be going to heaven or hell for. And so basically, I think what I've done with my life is like sort of somehow like release the Kraken. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to talk about that for a second. So like fashion police, which, whatever you want to make of it is, I, being a guy, I hardly took fashion seriously, but I must have watched many, many hours of you and your mom on that show just because, right?
It was funny.
So the cultural
Very
impact
funny.
of fashion police, which I think you guys coined that phrase anyway, right?
Well, how about in Live from the Red Carpet and all that?
Right.
Unfortunately, we do not own any of it for the trademark or anything, because if I did, I would be on my yacht somewhere, not sitting here.
Talking to us. Oh,
yeah.
Really
Full of manginas.
Yeah.
The hell of a way to spend a Friday.
Bad call on our parts. But we never knew if it was actually going to ever turn into anything or work.
Right.
Like I said, I'm not sure if I've actually like hurt culture or helped culture.
Well,
I fear it's hurt.
Well, I think it depends. I mean, look at how big that is now at any event, right? The whole red carpet. I mean, I've been on them. It's insane. I've been on, like, they shut down Hollywood Boulevard for movies, things like. And I grew up. It's funny because I grew up. Nick knows this. I grew up basically living at the Beverly Hilton, right? And I was there every Golden Globes for years and years and years as a kid with my parents. Right. And
it was so fun because you would be riding the elevators up and down to all the parties. It was like a big giant house party.
But I was like a kid, and even at that, like, certainly you would see stars there.
Not like
but
what
not
we
like
started
now.
doing.
And then, no, definitely not. And then all of a sudden you and your mom, you build this thing, and now boom, it's the biggest thing at any event, any award show,
Well, at least
everything.
pre-COVID.
Yeah, true. So now who knows?
Yeah.
But I think that that's, good or bad. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it goes back to look how much, I think somewhere deep in my parents' heart, they really did hope that I would do more, more with my education.
Right.
And I did. But I'm a good writer. I can read. I read constant nonfiction. I'm in the middle of another book about Churchill. So it's always, it's multiple parts of my personality, but I also think that's why I was good working live, because with my earpiece in, it was just one extra voice.
Yeah.
Many that were having conversations.
Right.
So it never threw me off. I'm just like, was that the truck or the other side of my brain?
Did your mom ever was there a point where you maybe made a decision like, I want to get into show business, and your mom was like, listen, did she try to talk you out of it? Have one of those?
Well, my parents always said from the time I was very young, we're not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. You're going to find your own way. But do know that entertainment and showbiz is a life of constant rejection.
Yeah.
And so I got to school as a freshman and I thought, I'm not going to be in the entertainment business. This is it. I'm going to take a totally different track. And the genius track I came up with was, because it's it was like a joke. Like, really? They're basically the same.
Yeah.
And then I was completely locked in on I wanted to do something either in marketing or advertising. And then I remember it's so distinctly, it was freshman year. And I was reading a magazine, or someone was reading a magazine, and they were talking about one of the people in the magazine. And they're like, oh my God, I love her. She's so nice. And I thought, oh my God, this person is a raging bitch. And I realized I can't live in the real. To the point they're like, oh my God, I love her. I can't believe what's happening. And I'm like, she's a terrible human being. I can't the curtain's been pulled too far back for too many years. And that's sort of just how I kind of rolled into it.
Right.
But I remember that distinctly.
Huh. So, you
got to admit, that's a weird epiphany.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
You're right.
I can never watch TV. I can never, or someone was like, oh my God, could you believe they did that? I'm like, yeah, I can tell you how they did it. They had a green screen,
Yeah.
Too much knowledge, I couldn't live in the civilian world.
Right. So in the early days of that show, I imagine you and your mom had a tremendous amount of freedom. No?
We did, because at the time E was so edgy and experimental, but before every show we were always reminded of the words we were not allowed to say.
Right. But as far as who you talked to and how you interviewed them and what you said and how you talked about the clothes, yeah. I imagine that was obviously you don't know what they're wearing, I guess, until they show up.
People who worked at E with us at the time and created that whole genre. One of my bosses, who was very instrumental in helping create all of this, used to say, we made walking into a building a party.
Right. Yeah, and a cultural phenomenon.
It was about we made walking into a building must-see viewing.
Right. Until you guys did that, I can't remember anyone asking anyone what they wore, what they're wearing.
There was not all the live. It was always pphotos and some clips and some little interviews along the way. It was a vastly different experience. So, but we remember at the time that we started it, cable was very edgy.
Right. Yeah.
But but we were always very reminded of, certain parameters and language, and we're not stupid. My mother always knew kind of exactly where the line was. Right. Every now and again, something would slip out. I think I was more frightened about accidentally cursing than she was.
Right. How did that
As
show?
I'm trying not to do now.
Oh, you can let it rip.
No, here it's all good.
But I'm trying to be better about it.
I wish I could be. It's a lost cause, I think. How did that show come to be? Like, I don't, I don't think of your mom, or obviously that's how we came to know you, was a fashion person. Like,
she was always a fashion person. You go back to the days on the Carson show,
right?
And at the time she had a deal at one point with Calvin Klein, that she only wore Calvin Klein, and she was way ahead of the curve on all of that. Always way ahead of the curve. It was always designer. It was always this. And it really started to have this strange impact that people would write in to find out what she was wearing.
Oh, wow.
And when she had her daytime talk show, she had a deal with Barney's, New York.
Wow, all right.
And they said whatever she wore on the show that day, without fail, they would sell it.
Wow.
But she was always a clothes person. Always.
What about you? Like, where do you fit into that?
Oh, where do I fit into that? I think because my mother was always so dressed and always so not put together, but very formal, lived in a very sort of, you never go out, unless you're like 100%.
Yep.
I definitely went the opposite, but I do have my uniform, and I live more by my uniform and variations on it.
Right.
So, and it's, over the years, there's days where I like, oh my God, I just roll out, where you're just like sunglasses and a baseball hat. But in general, I mean, I'm wearing a variation of the uniform today, which is a white t-shirt and jeans, because I feel like I can't really fuck that up. Like, oh my God, we saw Melissa Rivers and she looked horrible.
Right.
Like, I kind of can't mess it up.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask that. Like, is there a tremendous amount of pressure when you go out, especially during those years, to not have that day?
Those years for sure.
Had to be tough. People were looking for holes, I bet. Just looking for a reason.
There are certain things, like I'm always make sure that at least when I'm walking in or out of an airport, I don't look horrific.
Right.
But I tend to keep it pretty simple and wearable.
Yeah.
But still pulled together and clean and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's funny because I fly a lot back and forth, New York to LA, and it's I when I get on an airplane, I am in as comfortable clothes as I possibly can be, right? Just couldn't be more comfortable. And then I look, at the people next to me who are, celebrities or a few rows, and I'm like, I feel so bad that you got to get that dressed up to get on a plane just so when you enter JFK and exit LAX, the people taking the pictures are, getting you in a good light. I mean, that, like, I would not want that pressure.
But I mean, I have like my airport outfits.
Yep.
In the sense of like, it's never like heels or fully dressed up. It's either like a t-shirt with a jacket that I can then take off, or a nice sweater and jeans and cute shoes, or, just try and keep it, that I don't look like I just rolled out of bed and you've been on the 6 a.m. out of JFK or the 6 a.m. out of LAX.
Yep.
Where it's just, you don't want to be in anything but your sweats.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I don't allow, but whenever I used to, because we don't do that anymore, would travel overseas or anything like that, I would change into sweats on the plane and then change again when
I saw Jamie Foxx was sitting a few seats ahead of me on the flight, and I looked at him almost the entire flight just because of the outfit that he was wearing, trying to think in my mind how long it took him to pick out that outfit just to get on the airplane.
Like, when you travel a lot, you have your standards. I do a lot of like the concert tee and the jacket.
Yeah.
And like a good belt and cute shoes.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I get on the plane, the belt is off, my socks. I have my airplane sweater that's like a hoodie. I can pull it all the way over if I'm trying to sleep.
It's
my grandmother, when she was a kid, she was a bit of a tomboy, and at the time, this is 1950. That wasn't really acceptable. So her mom, she always had to wear a skirt and things like that, but she would just wear jeans underneath her skirt, roll them all the way up, wait till she got around the corner, and then would roll them down and take the skirt off.
Well, I was very much, also I grew up very much a tomboy, and same thing. If I had to wear a dress, they had to let me wear shorts underneath. Because what if I needed to climb a tree?
Yeah, right.
Or do a cartwheel? I mean, you had to think ahead.
Yeah.
It's true.
You grew up in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, my parents moved here when I was 3.
You never lived in New York?
Well, from 0 to 3.
Right. Well,
I spent a lot of time there.
So then you went, but your mom lived in New York, right? Wasn't your mom a full-time New Yorker?
Only after my dad passed away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that she was well, that makes sense.
Which would have been very odd that I was in Los Angeles and my parents were full-time New Yorkers. That would, you might want to call child not good play.
Well, I thought it maybe, post-college.
No, and my dad passed away while I was in college, and then she definitely went back to New York.
Right.
Got you. Okay.
What, speaking of your dad, this is a month that I'm sure means a lot to you and your philanthropic work.
Yes, it is Suicide Prevention Month. Yeah. And the thing, there actually, I don't mean to go serious, but a study just came out from the CDC that in the last 6 weeks, 1 in 4 teens or young adults has contemplated suicide.
Wow.
That's bad.
Yeah.
This is
bad.
This is not a great year for people that are having mental health issues either.
No, and I'm a big mental health advocate and a big suicide prevention advocate, and I'm on the board of a group called Edgy Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, and they're one of the first ones that established a full-time hotline, and they're very much always on the cutting edge and the forefront of working with people. And our big event every year, which this year was virtual, is called Erasing the Stigma.
Right.
And I think that's really where I fall into the conversation, which is you must talk about it. There is help. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. All of us have times where we don't feel good, and you have to make it especially okay for your teens to not feel like there's something wrong with them if they're having these emotions, and encourage them to talk.
Yeah.
I'm very open with my friends and with my son. I would say, you know what? I'm feeling really crappy in the same way you are, or this is really hard. So
I'll tell you what's interesting is I rarely use Facebook, right? And it's my birthday this month. So
happy birthday! What number is it?
He hates talking about his age. How old are you gonna be, Greg?
It's a few behind you. It's a mark.
So 50.
Yeah. So
yes.
It wasn't a hard give. First of all, saying, what, I'm 52 this year, so
yeah,
it wasn't hard math. What about you, Nick? You're being awful quiet.
He's a little boy.
I'm 32.
He's
go away.
32.
We have almost matching glasses.
I've been trying to get rid of him for years. So on Facebook, when I don't know, it's new. I've never seen it before. It was like pick a charity, and instead of get whatever, pick a charity and we'll tell your friends to donate to this charity on behalf of your birthday. So I picked suicide prevention charity, right?
There's a suicide prevention month.
And I just, I did it because, the person that really inspired me to start this podcast with Nick is a comedian who took his own life a couple of years ago. So, I just thought it was appropriate. And I cannot tell you how many Facebook friends of mine have either donated or reached out to me privately and said, hey, that's really cool. That's an important, thing to me, or I support that because of this. And I was completely taken aback by how many people. I really was.
And it's about erasing the stigma. That's what it really comes down to, which I think, that's always been sort of our slug line, for lack of a better way of describing it, at Edgy is it's all about erasing the stigma about mental health, and very much the part where I fall in is suicide.
Right. Yeah, and just being comfortable to ask for help, have a chat. I tell that to my kids all the time. I'm like, just either talk to me. You got a million people you can talk to. Just talk.
Yeah.
If you hold it inside, that's where you get problems.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being a teenager today. I just couldn't even. I couldn't even fathom it. With everything, the advancements in social media and Snapchat, and you're constantly inundated with stuff. For example, if you were in high school and say I liked a girl, and then I asked her out, she said, no, I don't want to hang out. But then I see on some other dude's Instagram story, they're hanging out. Instant depression. You don't know. Back then, when I was in high school, at least, we didn't really, there was Facebook when I turned 18, but that was it. That was really it.
And my son's 19 now, and having raised a teenager dealing with all the social media, it's insane.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And everybody knows what everybody's doing and is up in everybody's business. And you have to be really, as a parent, on top of it to make sure that there's not bullying and not bad things. And also that your kids aren't doing it unwittingly.
Right.
And also, which is a big lesson, and I don't know, Greg, how old your kids are, it doesn't go away.
Oh, yeah, they're teenagers.
But no, I'm saying it's you can say, oh, it's Snapchat, it disappears. No, it doesn't. Nothing disappears.
Oh, absolutely not. I've given my kids
too.
two very important.
How old are they?
13 and 16.
Oh, you're in the thick of it, man.
Tell me about it.
2
You
boys.
are in the thick of it.
It's an ongoing thickness. I hope it thins out sooner or
My
later.
condolences.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. So I told them 2 things, and I think they're good pieces of advice. Never send any kind of body part in any kind of electronic media where your face is in it. Right? Like that's just, don't ever do that. And also at the same time, don't think that the person you're sending to is not going to show it to 100 other people, no matter what.
I always say to my son, I always say, don't post anything that you would freak out if I saw it.
That's what I was going to say second, is don't do anything that you think your mom would be embarrassed by seeing of yours. And then the other important piece is, don't ever talk to a police officer without an attorney present.
Yes, of course. No, they cannot search your car without justifiable cause.
Like that just is a given. Speeding tickets, that's fine. But if you're just minding your business walking down the street, just be nice, be respectful, and don't say anything.
Yeah. I always say to my son, who is a really good kid, but since he was little, had this terrible affinity for somehow always being at the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
And so we've had this talk for many, many, many years. And honestly, like, he was like, I had nothing to do with it. And he didn't, but he was always at the scene of the crime.
Yep.
I'm like, what's up? Who are your friends? You know?
Like you need to teach him to run. Like, get the hell out of there.
Yeah. I'm always like, that was I'm like, dude, go. Yeah. Like, he's always at the scene of the crime. If they really need to talk to you, they'll find you.
Is he at college now? Like, is he physically away at school?
Yeah, he just started his sophomore year. I'm an empty nest.
Oh wow! So their school's all right with all the COVID stuff. Like, everyone's cool. Or?
No, it's they're on hybrid, and we just got a thing yesterday saying and my son's an athlete, that 2 of the athletic teams have had people test positive, so they're suspending all sports, all varsity sports. One of the fraternities just got locked down for 14 days because they all tested positive. It's a shit show, just like everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It's just a flat out shit show.
So there's one other TV show I really want to talk to you about, because I remember when this was on, it was one of my favorite shows in the reality space. I'm a Celebrity, Please Get Me Out of Here show.
Oh my God. Okay. So what do you want to know? Let me tell you how I ended up on it.
Yeah. I just want to know everything. Like, you remember that show?
What it was when I was on it was very different than sort of what it became.
Well, you're on the first one, right? Or the first,
the first US one.
Right.
It was sort of pitched to me as kind of like Celebrity Survivor light.
Yeah. Which
is not what it turned out to be. So for weeks, I'm training. I've got a trainer. I'm running uphill with a backpack.
Right.
I am lifting. I am training. I am, I'm getting mentally ready for all this. I come in like, I'm very competitive. I'm like, I am not going in. I'm going to win. But my first goal was to be the last woman standing.
Right.
And unfortunately, when that happened, I had to sort of readjust my goals. But I went in ready, like, beast mode. I literally was running uphill wearing a backpack training. And then we got there and it was a little bit different, but that permutation, it was much more physical.
Right. Yeah.
But there were a lot of unexpected production issues that happened, starting with the torrential rain. Yeah. For me, the hardest part was what I was told to expect.
And what happened
isn't necessarily what happened.
Right.
But I have to say, I became very good friends with Chris Judd, who I love and adore. It came down to the 2 of us. It was definitely an experience, but I'm glad I did it, because at least then it was a little bit closer to a Survivor than the later editions. So
were there people that you just flat out didn't get along with? You don't have to say who they are.
I pretty much get along with most people. I'm pretty easy to get along with. There were some that I just did not like.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. You're like, okay, I can deal with this. And then I found out later, like one particular was like really saying horrible things about me.
Like summer camp.
What?
Like summer camp.
Yeah. And then we all had to sort of fly home together on the plane. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I didn't know you had a problem with me. I was one of your biggest advocates. And
John,
when people come to me saying, oh, she's just crazy, I'm gonna be like, no, come on, guys, give her a chance. And you're like, and you slammed the shit out of me? And then we're on a flight home from Australia?
How long was the taping? A couple of weeks?
What?
How long was the taping? A couple of weeks?
A couple weeks.
Yeah.
A couple weeks.
So that, I don't know, that just seems like a fun thing to sign up for. I would have gone into it thinking like it is Survivor light. Like if you want to do Survivor, like go on Celebrity Survivor.
Right. Like they're not going to kill us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we might be challenged, but I figured Celebrity Survivor, perfect. My son was still young enough that he wouldn't realize how long I was gone for. And I really thought it was going to be like, oh, this is going to be great. Like I said, I'm a tomboy, I'm an athlete, all this. Like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like Survivor light. Yeah. Like they're going to feed us kind of thing, unlike Survivor, whatever they do. And, not so much.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
I was in good shape by the end of it. By the time
I
got down there, like
ripped.
It's
ready.
Fun. It's fun when you have something to train for too.
Exactly. And I'm like, I'm going to go in and because they expect everyone. I always know that when they hire me for one of these shows or that when they offered me the show, originally I said, absolutely not. They're expecting like, My Pretty Pony princess girl. So I went in like, oh, no, you guys don't know me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, that was a big problem because it throws off the script.
Right.
Because I was not the person
they thought they were getting.
Right. Yeah. They were not expecting someone going, I'll race up the hill.
Right.
To whatever, So yeah. I think it threw them off a little bit. Also, never hire someone who's also a producer.
Right. Because they're going to tell you how to do your job.
Especially when things were going wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So,
I was going to say one inside story if you want it.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pissing down rain. And we have all sorts of drama because of the rain. And it's super muddy. And we're living in standing water. And Chris and I start trenching the whole camp because we got to get the standing water out of there. What we didn't realize was they had built the camp. Like it wasn't on real ground. They had sort of made it.
Yep.
And it's pouring rain and we're digging and we hit cables. Okay. So we hear over the speaker, like, stop! Right. So they stop down and the producers come out. A couple of them I knew, but the main one who was one of the people who would talk me into doing it. Yeah, I'm like, you can't, and I of course became the representative. I'm like, you can't have us, this is really like, people are going to get really sick. You can't have us living in standing water.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to trench it. And I forgot how it started, but I'm like, how could you have not been prepared for this? Yeah. Kind of right.
Right.
Goes, oh, well, we were told it was a drought season. And I said, did anyone ask what drought in the rainforest actually means?
Yeah, right.
Oh, so it's 9 inches instead of 15? I'm like, so I kind of went a little bananas at that point. That's why I say, like, never, I got us, I'm like, you have to give us a chance to dry our clothes. You have to get water out of here. And everybody got really sick after. Wow. That was a bad, bad situation. I got really sick. Chris got really sick. A couple other people, we got really sick after.
Like when you got home, you got sick. Yeah. Wow, that sucks.
And Chris got sick enough that he couldn't fly home.
Oh man,
Jesus! For a couple weeks.
If I'm remembering correctly, it was a while ago, but I think there were like he couldn't fly for like 2 weeks. And I got home and I ended up having to go to I had all these weird bumps.
Yeah, I'm
one
sure.
right by my eye, and I ended up going to an infectious disease guy. And
so that 2-week vacation didn't seem.
Yeah. So
Anyway, so then transitioning to the other reality show, The Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, everyone knows what happened, but your mom wins,
Yeah.
right? So that obviously must have been like somewhat bittersweet, but at the same time, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you just assume is going on, what goes on one of those shows. But that's got to be pretty awesome to see your mom win that show.
It was great. It was great to watch her win. That, believe it or not, is the hardest show I've ever done.
Right.
And ended up being like the most physically taxing, emotionally taxing, much more than Get Me Out of Here.
Really?
Oh, 6 days a week, starting, 6 a.m.
But how long were you actually taping for?
I was there quite a while.
Right.
Because when you're doing the show, each task is 2 days.
Right.
So it's a very compressed schedule. So you're doing basically an episode every 2 days.
Oh wow, that's a lot. And how long did that tape for?
Oh God, I don't remember. I don't know. I think I blocked it out.
She just went. Did you see her gaze? She just went to like a different dimension. It's like Vietnam flashback.
It was a little PTSD, but I was there for a while. Like I didn't have long enough to like come home and regroup and go back. I think I flew home for like a long weekend,
right,
or a couple days after I was let go, fired, and then I turned around and came back. It was a very tight schedule.
Right.
Because like I said, you do an episode every 2 days and you get 1 day a week off. You got Sundays off.
And then when they're doing that, everyone is just scattered wherever they are.
Well, most people, they put them up.
Right.
All in wherever, from Tower, Place, whatever. I obviously stayed with my mom at her place. And people who had residences in New York stayed in our residences.
Was there a lot of socializing amongst the cast?
No, but you're so tired.
Right.
And, literally, well, especially for the women, because we would have 5:30, 6 a.m. hair and makeup call times. And you go until you're done.
Right.
Basically, I mean, they usually cut us off around 9. And then the next morning you're up again.
Wow.
And you're doing that 6 days a week. And you do get a lunch break. Or no, do we get a lunch break? But you can keep working through lunch, and you could keep working through dinner.
Right. Did you enjoy the experience?
I guess. I love that my mom won. I love that my mom won. So yeah, it was a good experience. Again, it's an experience. I'm glad I did it.
Right.
It was cool to do.
Right. Well, I was rooting for your mom from day one.
As a producer, for me, I would step back, especially because I was producing on the red carpets. I would step back and look around and try and figure out how they were putting the whole show together. So it really became, for me, a masterclass in production.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so when I would get frustrated, I would look, and then you become friendly with the crew, and they would always a couple of them would slip me the master call sheets so I could look and see how they were staggering everyone, who was going where, who was doing what. So it really was, I would take time every day to step back.
Oh, that's cool. It
was a masterclass in producing.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just even how they set up the teams of producers jumping each other. And I mean, so I learned a ton.
That's good. So that's certainly worth the experience.
Yeah.
Doing that.
So now let's talk about your podcast.
Let's talk about my podcast, since we're all on the same wonderful platform.
Yeah. Plug it. STORIC.
STORIC.
So how did this come to be?
Gosh, I don't know. I've been wanting to do one, and I pitched a couple times at like some of the other places, and everyone's like, I don't know. And I thought, screw it, I'm going to start it myself. And and two of my very close coworkers, friends from E, who are no longer there, came to me and said, we got to do a podcast. This all sort of happened at the same time. As I'm like, you know what, let's try it. And so we got together, and what was going on at the time was, it was during, it was during the last election cycle. No, I don't know. I don't remember. It was this election cycle. Sorry. And no, couldn't have been this one. Anyway, well, no, because here was the thing: was I have a great group of friends from Penn, and we had this big group text, and there was something going on. I don't know, quite remember what it was, and it was hilarious reading the threads because all of us were watching independently, but all on our group text. It was hilarious, and that's sort of what gave me the inspiration that we should do, that I should call it group text,
Right?
Because it really that's something. It wasn't during the last cycle, because this whole time I've been obsessed with Bernie Sanders' hair. That's okay. At the debates, his hair was amazing.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Yeah, it was like done, and it was actually one of the debates that had a little bit of shine to it. It wasn't standing up. He wouldn't look like the heat miser. Like, it was good.
Well, people from Vermont don't get enough credit for their good hair.
But no, I mean, whoever they had doing his hair for the debates, 2 thumbs up. Anyway, so that's why I decided to call it group text, because we're always talking about something and everyone's very opinionated. And I thought, if I'm talking about this with my friends, other people are going to want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's just, everyone's like, well, what's it about? I'm like, it's whatever I feel like is interesting. We've done everything from cults to very serious. I did a whole series called Can We Talk, Can We Listen, which is also the name of my foundation, during all of the unrest.
Yeah.
Where we had really serious conversations. We had some very serious COVID conversations. And last week, I think, was sex and intimacy during COVID. And we had on a sex therapist.
And a porn star.
And a porn star. Well, because if you want to talk about sex, you got to have someone representing the industry.
100%. 100%.
Gotta talk to the pros.
You know, and that is what my education has taught me. Always make sure you're doing your research and finding the experts.
Yep. Yeah, we had a couple on in about a year ago. We did one with these 2 girls who have a podcast called Shameless Sex, and it's all
Amy and
not
April.
like, it's not gratuitous. It's like a health, like a sex health podcast, and they taught Nick what his colon was.
Oh, how lucky for you!
My prostate, you mean?
Prostate, sorry.
I didn't know where his colon was. It was a little bit alarming, but I was just going to run with it.
Sorry.
What I asked the porn star was, because it's apparently how people are consuming porn and what they're consuming has changed during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
People are looking for a lot less hardcore and much more intimacy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
So it's kind of like, that's why we had her on, like, and she has like one of those things where you can talk directly to her.
Yep.
And she's like, I'm like, people want, what she's finding is much more of the human connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, every time, usually it's men, right? That are like, men watch porn, but women also watch porn. And whenever I've talked to girls that do watch porn, they watch lesbian porn because it is more sensual and slower, and it's not this aggressive, whatever it may be. The majority that I've spoken to, at least, said, yeah, they prefer that because it's more sensual. They're not into girls, but they prefer it because it's more
right. So,
to
but
what
again,
they like.
Should you book a porn star again? It's an interesting question in the for this particular world we're living in.
Yeah.
That what people are looking for is vastly, vastly different.
Yeah, we had one on. We should probably get her back on again and talk
State
about
of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually interesting. It was we did have a porn actress on, and her husband, Danny Daniels and Vic Coppola.
I'm not what would be the word? I'm not
Connoisseur.
Connoisseur, thank you.
I wasn't either, and it's funny because Nick mentioned it to me. He's like, "Oh, we can get this girl." And I'm like, "All right, whatever. Like, we'll talk to anybody." At the time, it was one of our first like 15 episodes.
Well, and clearly you're still talking to anybody because you're talking to me.
Oh, please.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just anybody.
I don't know who that is.
Low bar that I like to live at.
Just keep it going back.
You don't get disappointed.
But when we talked to her, I had no real interest in talking about like the gratuitous side of the business. Like, I could care less. I'm much more interested in the business side of the business, and how it worked, and the similarities between where that business is now and where music was with Napster, and how Napster hurt the pay for music business. And it was very interesting conversation, like really interesting.
I think a lot of these performers that have become producers.
Yeah.
they're very smart.
Oh, she was very smart.
Like,
And
she owns a bunch. So how we got her is she has a online, like her clothing business, and she has an art business. My one of my best friends from here, from home, handles her fulfillment, like her e-commerce stuff.
Right.
And that's how we got to know her. But like, yeah, she's a very smart, 30-year-old woman who's
Very
now
savvy.
retired from, you know what I mean, making all this money, has all these businesses. They're not dummies.
Yeah. So it's always interesting to really talk to them. Again, like anything, it's behind the scenes. It's interesting to understand how the business works, and just just like people are always fascinated how TV shows work.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I listened to your Steve-O episode.
I love Steve-O. I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome. Wow. But I can tell you, I mean, of all the places I've seen Steve and heard him in interviews and stuff, I really thought your interview with him was one of the best. It really, like, he talked. You guys must be friends.
No, that was the very first time we'd ever talked.
Really?
We just hit it off.
Yeah, you could totally tell. Like, it was a very natural conversation, and I just learned things about him I never knew. I mean, I knew obviously the circus stuff and the crazy things, but it was a great interview, and it speaks to the different types of interviews you're doing with people in your podcast. It's not just like one thing across the board. Every episode seems to be a different type of person interview, or what you're going to talk about, from serious to not serious.
Right. And that's why the name group text made sense to me.
Yeah.
Because what's on my phone right now? Let's see.
Oh, trust me, you do not want me to read the texts between Nick and I. Nick and I's texts would not be
17 different conversations, and we started this big giant group during COVID on a different platform than just regular text. Yeah. And it's one of those ones that disappears supposedly, but we all feel a little bit better about that.
You mean WeChat or something?
Wicker.
WhatsApp? Oh, Wicker. I don't even know that one.
Exactly.
Wow.
Double secret probation kind of thing. And there's 28 of us on it.
Jeez.
28
of us who all went to college together. Ooh. And it's hilarious. And it's everything from people posting very serious articles, and especially during the height of COVID, someone knew someone and they were posting all this, scientific stuff, to obviously a lot about the election, to there's a big thing, a lot of postings of food, and it's all the guys. All these guys in this group are like amazing cooks. We've watched one of our guy friends built a garden and is growing things. To do it all over. And that's what I always love. I get so many of my ideas of what I want to talk about from that group. Because today people were posting pictures of vacations at lakes.
Right.
And I'm like, whatever. There's no show in that for me. But it's hilarious.
I bet.
Hilarious.
I'd like to get on the food text chain.
Seriously, at one point, I'm like, enough fucking pictures of food, especially because I don't cook. I'm a terrible, but we would have literally like 20 pictures of food, and then they put in bottles of wine, and then there's 3 of them would have this, and you can't get away from it. It's all in the same group.
I'll tell you how it worked. Like I about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, it was mac and cheese day. Right? Like one of these stupid days, National Mac and Cheese Day. But I went out and I happened to be in a store and I bought some lobster mac and cheese. I go home, I heat it up in my microwave, I stick it on my counter at home. I go to eat it. I took a picture of it first, and there happened to be a Corona Seltzer in the background of this picture. I took it and then posted it on Instagram, just for National Mac and Cheese Day. And I tagged, I think, Corona Seltzer or something. The head of marketing of Corona saw it, DM'd me, thanking me for the support, and sent me 3 cases of beer that was on my front step within an hour of me posting that picture on Instagram.
My God, you must have a lot more followers than me, because I don't get shit. I don't get shit.
I don't.
You don't get anything?
God, after we left the red carpet and moved to TV Guide and then left there. So my mother passes away. And I'm going to my first event. Nobody would lend me a dress.
What?
Simply because
I'm not important enough.
That's insanity.
I still cannot get designers to lend me clothes for event. I mean, not that it matters right now, but it's nothing like getting kicked to the, nothing like being told you're irrelevant.
Wow, that's
now. I mean, I guess this kind of because I wanted to talk about this a little bit. You have a book coming out next Mother's Day, and it's about your mother, correct or similar? Sort of. Explain what the book is.
It's called Lies My Mother Told Me.
Okay.
And so we have a very basic jumping off point. But people are going to have to figure out if it's a work of fiction or nonfiction.
Oh, that's cool.
It's cool. Basically a comedy book. We're going to put like 3 true stories in the book and then everyone else. But it's way over the top. It's way over the top. It's a comedy book. When we were out, when my agent was pitching it, one of the publishing houses that really wanted it at that point said, wow, your mom, these stories. Like, I'm like, I made them up. I'm like, my mother did not really call the Last Supper the last brunch. Like, this is not.
Yeah, but that's believable that your mom would.
Right. But I'm saying, so, but there's whole chapters like this. There's a whole on how the French Revolution really started. And then another one that can be, they're worried about the liability.
Oh, like, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, it's my mother. I'm an only child. I'm the estate. I'm not suing myself.
You're right.
So we ended up with a great publisher. But it was hilarious that people thought that some of these things that I've written that are very over the top were true.
Wow.
But I will tell you, I have a wonderful writing partner, and who was one of my mother's writing. It was the one writing partner my mother and I shared, which was hilarious.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, so he really knows her voice. And obviously I have my voice. So telling the story from my point of view.
Right.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome book. I can't wait to read that.
Yeah.
You probably have some amazing stories, like real stories though.
I do. And a lot of that was in my book of Joan.
Okay.
And we're going to mix in some real ones, and, we'll do a little thing at the end that you can take a quiz and see if you
you do. I was on a podcast a few months ago called The Liars Club.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't checked it out, if you haven't heard of it, check it out. It's very funny. It's mostly comedians. It's done from the Comedy Store in LA. Yeah. And you basically go on and you tell 2 stories. One's a lie, one's the truth. And then people on the panel have to guess what's the truth and what's the lie. And it would I listened to a bunch of them before I was on it to like see what the ground rules were. And man, like these stories were insane. Like that couldn't possibly be true. And then the other was like, how could that story be true? And then one of them was true.
Yeah. Well,
nobody guessed mine.
Oh, well, that's good.
They were all wrong.
So I've just written a chapter that I'm pretty sure I will be going to hell for. And I was telling one of my very good friends the topic matter. And she goes, well, that's true. I'm like, what? She's like the person I was written the story about, the historical figure. She goes, no, that's true. I'm like, shit. So I'm gonna make that one of my true ones.
Right.
I was like, how could I have made something up this ridiculous
and have it be true?
And my friend is very smart. She's the head of a museum. She's like, no, that's actually true, and pulls it up on her phone to show me. I'm like, damn it. Here's that fucking chapter.
Well, put it in. We'll have to figure which one that is.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, before we go, I do want to talk about what's coming out on your mom on Comedy Dynamics next year, which is they're putting out a whole bunch of never before seen.
Heard. Yeah. A lot of, I've finally, doing something with the archives.
Wow.
But do you think comedy is dead? I've been doing a little mini series on my podcast that's about to be released, talking to different comedians and writers. Is comedy dead? Is comedy on life support? Are we allowed to be creative? Are we allowed to laugh anymore?
You mean because of the cancel culture?
Yeah, you're saying because people are so sensitive?
Yeah. So I feel like this, and the reason I ask is this stuff of my mom's is edgy, but I think it's gonna be fine because it's in historical context.
Right.
I think it's only a small percentage of people that are making a lot of noise. about.
But they're loud.
They're loud. But also, if you look at, the comedy / podcast space, you look at all these stand-ups, right? Look at Joe Rogan. That is the biggest podcast in the entire world, right? He's a stand-up comic. He goes and sells out arenas with Dave Chappelle, 25,000 people. So, I mean, yes, there's a loud, small percentage, but I don't think comedy's ever going to die.
I don't think so either. And I'll tell you, Bill Burr just announced 2 shows out here in Connecticut at one of these outdoor farms where they're allowed to have shows. They sold out in like 30 seconds.
I think everybody wants to laugh. But
And-
the question for me is, okay, and more from a different perspective, though, you couldn't make Airplane today. You couldn't make Blazing Saddles today.
Oh, definitely not.
You couldn't make Animal
Stir Crazy,
House
Animal,
today.
yeah, any of
You
those.
couldn't make any of these.
Well, I asked my dad about this too. My father's 7 years old. And I grew up watching the Dean Martin roasts with.
I actually talked to Jeff Ross about our roast going to ever come back.
I think so. I mean, you look at those roasts, right? Like, let's use Don Rickles as an example. All races, Jewish, whatever, black, they're all ripping on each other and pretty harshly. But everyone was laughing and smiling, and I was like, this couldn't be done nowadays. They're openly making fun of Frank Sinatra's mafia connections, like shit you can't do.
Can't do that anymore.
But it's great. Like, why would the stuff I'm sure that's going to come out that your mom did? Like, people are going to love that.
Yeah.
My dad's going to love that.
I do. I think there's going to be a revolution the other way, right? Because I think it's how the person that is getting attacked handles it is what ultimately will happen, right? So if you look at a couple of recent examples, Chris D'Elia, who it's sex stuff with minors, and I'm sure there's
that's
no, of course there is,
always bad.
100%, but there's always truths and untruths to any given story, right? Mm-hmm. So I think he chose, and again, I don't know him at all, but I think he chose to go and hide until it goes away, which, if there's truth to it, it's never going to go away.
Right.
If there isn't any truth to it, it will go away like a lot of these things do pretty quickly, and then he'll come back and you'll see what happens. But then like Joey Diaz, who, did a bit, right? And now someone is trying to make something out of it. He didn't sit down. He literally went after it, was like, screw you. This was a bit hard after it, and no effects whatsoever for a minute. Right. So I think it depends on how the person handles it. Of course, any, minors that's terrible, whatever. But I think it's all circumstantial.
I wish I could be as optimistic as you. In the sense of, I think what we're going to lose is, first of all, nothing should ever be done that's mean.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's, and there's jokes about different cultures and we all know them, but I think it's going to end so much creativity. And I think you're going to find some of the people like my mother or a Richard Pryor in his day, or any of these people in there, even a Robin Williams in their day. You don't want them to start second guessing themselves.
But do you think your mom would have done that? Of everything I've ever, I'm a huge fan of your mom, huge, right? Since I remember when she had the 11 o'clock show, we're around the same age, so we're in the same wheelhouse. Yeah. So I'm an absolutely huge fan of your mom. She's one of my all-time favorite people ever to go on the Howard Stern show. I mean, forget women comedians, when I hate people use women as a comedian, right. Just comedians. She's one of the funniest people ever to talk in front of a microphone, ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I cannot believe that your mom would center herself under any circumstance.
Again, but you're taking someone from a different era and putting them here. I feel like Dave Chappelle is truly the only one who is allowed to truly walk that line, that edge, because there is such an honesty to it.
Right.
He does it very well.
I can't be bought kind of thing. That he almost gets, I hate to say it, a pass.
Yeah.
But no one could be doing what he's doing.
Right.
I think what concerns is more in the next group of comedians and writers is, have we taken away, are they going to be so scared that you're going to be stifling this kind of creativity?
Right.
You're not going to get these movies because people are going to be scared.
I don't think so. I mean, I could use 2 examples. You ever heard of this comedian Tim Dillon? He's relatively he's hitting it big now.
He's in LA now.
Yeah, LA guy. He was a New York guy. He's very smart, very educated, but very direct. And this dude's selling out places left and right. Another guy, Tom Segura.
I love him.
One of my favorites. Now, he made that comment in his special Disgraceful that was like 3 years ago about how Louisiana and Cajun people suck, right? And people, reached out to him and got mad, but he went and just booked immediately 2 shows in Louisiana right out. You know what I mean? So like, I see things like that and I'm like, no, it's fine. And they sold out, by the way, those shows.
Good.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's really such a small percentage that's being so loud. I really don't believe comedy is going anywhere. The younger guys are doing it now. We've spoken to a lot of them, a lot of people at the Comedy Store, and they're fighting.
I just, my big fear is always, again, are we stifling creativity? And I'm not saying people should be racist or this or that or the other, but I mean, my mom called it as she saw it. She, at the end of her life, she would walk on stage and unleash a string of racial slurs like you have never heard. And you would hear the whole room go, and you'd hear the air suck out of it. And she would wait a beat and she goes, we're all something. Now let's get started.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that really is the way I think the Eddie Murphy special that Netflix is supposed to be doing is still coming out at some point. I don't know.
You can do Raw. You can do Delirious.
Oh, dude.
Oh, my God.
Delirious.
Listen, you know what's funny? When I was a sophomore in high school, I went to see Eddie Murphy at Radio City Music Hall with my parents and 2 of my high school friends, right? And it was between Delirious and Raw, right? Mm-hmm. So it was basically some of the Delirious stuff and then obviously things that happened in Raw. And I mean, obviously filthy, racist, sexist, like every homophobic, every single thing possible. So he only has that to compare, granted 30 years ago, to his next stand-up special. So I'm very curious to see where that special lands and what his material is.
That's what I'm saying is that's what makes, I'm glad that you guys, because you're especially much more keyed into the whole sort of younger, newer comedian world. That's my fear, is that, people start second guessing themselves and you're never going to have another Lenny Bruce, or you're never going to have another Richard Pryor, or you're never going to have, and I'm not talking about the ones that already exist, another Joan Rivers or any of those people who, are that fear is going to stifle so much of it. And I certainly hope not. I am, one of the, I feel like I'm grandfathered in with all these comedians. I mean, I grew up at the feet of the best.
Yeah.
And I just hope that doesn't disappear. I hope that the next of that generation who is willing to sort of speak truth to power in a way doesn't get scared.
Yeah. I really don't think, I hope not either, but I really don't think so. Even a guy like Eddie Murphy.
That makes me very happy to hear.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy also is another guy who's kind of untouchable in a way. Like him and Chappelle, especially Chappelle, who's like, hey, I'm going to go live on a farm in Ohio. Fuck everybody. Like really fuck everybody.
Yeah.
He just does his own shows. He shows up. There's stories of him showing up at like comedy clubs. Joe Rogan tells a story. He got off stage in Denver and Chappelle's there. And he's like, dude, you should go up. And Chappelle's like, should I? He's like, what do you mean? You just flew here. He's like, yeah, I just flew to Denver. I heard you were here. I wanted to see you. And he's like, get out there. And he does an hour, kills. Like he's just in his own planet.
But again, he's a genius. He is in that same conversation as is a Chris Rock. Yeah. They for me are in that same conversation.
I don't think.
Well, we'll see. I'm holding out hope.
Me too.
Doesn't turn into nothing but blue comedy from here on out.
Yeah.
that we know a couple great ones, but it would bum me out beyond belief.
I would tell this one thing. So about 2012, like this whole cancel culture thing, this is when I literally had this feeling. I was like, there's going to be a problem. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but in 2012, there's a video of a bunch of kids at Yale screaming at their professor about a Halloween costume choice or something like that. Like they were going to have a Halloween party and someone showed up as I don't know. It wasn't even that ridiculous. And the professor was in a group email and the professor was like, hey, we're all adults. Like everyone's okay. Like we're all right. And there was literally a group of kids just screaming at this professor in the middle of Yale. And I remember at that moment being like, something's changing, like something's coming. I don't know what it is, but like, that's so strange to me.
Well, my son will see something or say something, or one of us will say something. He's like, you can't say that. You can't say that. That's wrong. And I'm like, you have so much fucked up comedy DNA and you shut up. You want to say that is not from our side of the family.
Yeah. That's like, amazing.
You can't say that. I'm like, I hate you for being right.
That's true.
That's awesome. So, I mean, we've talked about an awful lot of stuff, and this has been an amazing time for us. We really appreciate it.
I hope I wasn't boring.
Boring? Are you crazy?
Like I said, I call it a very low bar. Very low. You keep the bar low, end up succeeding more than you realize.
I've said that so many times in my life. I was like, just keep your expectations down here. Just write down by your...
I can't disappoint you.
Yeah, I told someone yesterday that I start out at a 2 and I dial it back from there.
Perfect.
So, but this was like a 9.5, 10, easy.
Oh,
easy for us.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate
obviously, group text, podcast, everyone's got to find
when
it.
am I going to get you guys on group text?
Anytime you want.
Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
I'll find a topic that works for you guys. It'll probably be something silly.
I'm down with silly.
Okay. Silly or serious, I don't give a shit. Either one. I'll do both.
Now Nick knows where his prostate is, so almost everything is on the table.
I personally will sleep better at night.
I will too. Actually, it was a challenging afternoon.
I was tired. Whatever. Shut up, Greg.
All right, so we're going to direct everyone
next week. You have to get yours checked, right? At your age.
Yes. Whatever.
Okay. I'm just
yeah. It's that time.
It's been checked plenty of times. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll direct everyone to all your stuff. We can't wait for the book. Your mom's stuff comes out next year. Everyone's going to have to listen to all of that.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, Melissa.
Bye.
You're the best. Talk soon.